This is Ben McQuinney Outdoors Radio. True Canadian Outdoors presents Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio. It's been brought to you in part by True Canadian Outdoors, your one-stop and outdoor adventure. Angler's Choice, the Angler's Choice in handmade soft plastics. Handlebars, musky lures. Zing the Bling. Frantic Big Game Baits. Anglers know the game. Fish fear the name. And Fish NV Multi-Species Guide Service. Catch it. This is Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio. So this week's topic, we're talking about guiding, and my special guest is Mark Melnyk. And as we all know, Mark has a few series on WFN. His one series that he's just about to launch here, or has started to, Mark, is Guided.
Yeah, you know, Ben, Guided actually starts tonight. It premieres tonight on WFN at 7:30 Eastern Time. And it's a really cool episode from northwestern British Columbia outside of Terrace, BC. So some virgin steelhead country with West Coast fishing adventures and Gil McKean. It's an awesome way to start the season.
Awesome. So you've been already doing production for this series, though, haven't you?
Absolutely. You know, we've just finished shooting all 11 episodes. The first 6 have been delivered to WFN. Our last 2 are in South Louisiana. And again, the series premieres tonight and goes for 11 weeks starting now. So
awesome.
Everything is good. Everything is rosy.
Awesome. So being a guide, what would you say is the most gratifying moment as a guide?
Of being a guide?
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of things. Number one, if, you know, with tongue firmly planted in cheek, the most gratifying moment is when you shake hands goodbye to your client and it's been a successful day.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, the best part of being a guide is watching somebody who is new to the sport or new to fishing for a certain species hook up with their first one or hook up with their biggest or what have you. As people like we are, like-minded people in the outdoor space, whether you have a fishing rod in your hand or you're watching somebody with a fishing rod in your hand, that excitement never leaves when that fish is hooked and that fish is landed. So to see somebody catch their first or their biggest is an absolute thrill, and I would venture to say that the adrenaline rush is just about as high as if you caught that fish yourself.
Absolutely. Any funny moments?
How much time have you got?
Oh, I got 10 minutes, buddy. We can roll for 10 minutes.
Yeah, you know, we've had some great moments out there. The episode that airs tonight, there was a colossal disaster where we drove 2 hours to this pristine Steelhead River, and upon opening the back of the truck to unload everything, I realized that I had forgotten my wading boots. And anybody who's been in cold weather wading situation or a river wading situation for any matter knows that without those boots, those felt sole boots or those studded boots, you cannot do a thing on the water. So it was that was a completely lost day. And I'm very embarrassed about it, but you know what? Guided is real, and that's what happened.
It's real, that's right, that's guiding.
That was one thing. Another thing is we actually got seasick for the first time in my life.
No.
Down in Tobago. I've been offshore countless times, and I went down to Trinidad and Tobago with a middle ear infection, and 3 days offshore, and all of a sudden I decided, you know what, stop fighting it, stop fighting the sickness, how you're feeling, and just let it fly. Donate to the ocean, and maybe it'll bring some fish in. So, and it did, because we ended up catching a blue marlin that day. It was awesome.
Well, let's see. What do we have here? I have a funny story from my guiding experience.
Mm-hmm.
We took the Greyhound out to Jasper, Alberta, and I was fishing up on Moline Lake, and he told me to go up there by myself with this old quad cab, 1973 quad cab Ford, and 21-foot freighter canoe, fully loaded with all the batteries and the motor and everything. And I get up there, and it was just the most beautiful day, like today, down in Jasper. And I get up into the mountains, and the wind's howling. There's white caps on the lake. And I call him up. I was like, I don't think I can do this. He goes, you get that boat in the water now. He said, I don't want you to come back until you've caught a fish. Oh, yeah. So
hung you out to dry.
What's that?
He hung you out to dry.
Oh, he did. He fed me right to the wolves. He goes, that's your pre-fish. He goes, you got to pre-fish that lake because you have a booking tomorrow, so you better find some spots and find some fish.
You know, that's one of the things, that's one of the misconceptions of being a fishing guide that really smacked me upside the head when I started doing this show is actually fishing is such a small part of being a guide.
Yeah.
Being a guide is, you're a psychologist, you're a psychiatrist, you're a sociologist, you are a adventure seeker that has to, you know, often put people that are not supposed to be in those situations, whether they're, you know, they can't walk in a rushing river or what have you. You know, you're often doctor, you're often, you know, lawyer at certain times. Fishing is such a small part of being a guide, but that's the most important part, because you know what, that's what people realize is, you know, somebody like myself or some of my friends, they'll save a long time to save up enough money to go out and hire a guide on that vacation or that boys trip of a lifetime or what have you. And there's so much that goes into it other than actually catching fish to make sure that the client has a great time.
Yeah.
You know, I did an interview with Florida Fishing Radio last week, and Steve Chapman asked me, the first question is, you know, what are your impressions? And this is the God's honest truth is, you know, my regret in my fishing career is that now that I've experienced what being a guide is really like, is that I did not tip the guides that I had hired nearly enough, because they are good. A good guide is worth his weight in gold.
Absolutely.
And to find a good qualified guide to take you out, to show you a time, to show you what it's really like, and to show you how to catch that specific species of fish is invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Just in correlation with that, I took out a group of Chinese businessmen that were staying at Jasper Park Lodge, and we split the group because there was 4 of us. So my partner took 2, and I took 2, and the 2 that I had, unfortunately, there was a language barrier. Neither one of them spoke a lot of English, and we were pike fishing on one of the lower land lakes, and I had fish all around me, and they had their rods in the water, they were casting, and do you think they could hook up? No. But and
how did that make you feel as a fishing guide?
I was absolutely...
This is part of the thing, right?
Yeah,
is that if
I
you've
was
got somebody
absolutely frustrated. I was like, what do I do? Because I can't take that rod and fish it for them. I can't hook up with a pike for them and hand them the rod.
Yep.
It was against the rules as a park guide, and I was just absolutely beside myself. So I took one last ditch effort. It was a half-day trip, and I tucked into this little back bay, and there was a bull elk, full velvet, coming down off the shoulder of the road to get a drink of water. While the rods got hit through to the bottom of the boat, the cameras came out, and they kept on asking me, get closer, get closer. Well, I put them from the bow of the boat right on shore. That bull moose could have walked right into the boat. Good. Thank goodness it was spring and not fall. But they took pictures of it, and at the end of the trip, I was like absolutely mortified that I couldn't get their fish, because my partner came back to the dock and was just bragging up a storm of how many fish they were into, and they ended up tipping me, and my partner ended up not getting a tip. So when we got back to the shop and offloaded all the boats, my boss looked at me and goes, "How'd you do?" I said, "Saw tons of fish, boss, but I couldn't get them on them. But they tipped me." And he looked at my partner, he goes, "How about you?" He goes, "Well, we had tons of fish and hooked up plenty, but I didn't get a tip." And he looked back at me and said, "Well, we know who the guide was today."
Absolutely. And one of the biggest or the best points of advice that I've ever been given in shooting this show is I was taking somebody out weight fishing for bonefish, and he put his hand on my the guide, the mentor guide put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Just remember, whatever happens out there, you're a guide, not a god."
That's right.
You can show them where the fish are, but you cannot make it happen for them.
No,
they have to be able to do that themselves. You can help them with it. You can't hook the fish for them, but you can help them get to that point. But you're a guide, not a god. Never forget that. And the pressure that these guys must feel as people that rely on their living to show people a good time and to catch them fish must just be absolutely enormous.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, folks, that's all the time we have. My special guest, Mark Melnyk, from WFN's new hit series, Guided. You can check out the premiere tonight at 7:30 on Rogers Cable 426.
Also, Ben, if I may say, there's a live chat on Facebook. So go to the World Fishing Network Facebook page tonight at 7:30, and I'll be on chatting live with anybody that wants to ask questions about the guiding industry and the TV show.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Mark, for being part of Ben McQuinney Outdoors Radio, my first podcast, which will air tomorrow, Friday. And you can tune in to Ben McQuinney Outdoors every Friday at the same time. I'll just have to get that up and running with Reno as what time he's going to air us. But it's been Ben McQuinney and Mark Melnyk. You are the man. I look forward to watching your show tonight.
Thank you, sir. Have a great time.
You too. Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. True Canadian Outdoors presents Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio. My next guest is a multi-species angler, Okuma Pro staff, Brent Bochek. Brent, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ben. How you doing?
Good. Brent, this week's topic is guiding, and being a multi-species guide, you have to pretty much tear down and set up if you only have a half-day trip and somebody wants to go for salmon in the morning and walleye in the afternoon. Is that correct?
Well, usually it'll be the next day, Ben.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what'll happen is, say on a Saturday, I might be salmon fishing out here on Lake Ontario, and then the next day I could be muskie fishing either up in the Kawarthas or on the Upper Niagara River.
Wow. So you travel too?
Oh yeah, boat will travel.
Boat will travel. That's right. So some of the with Mark, we were talking about some of the frustrations of being a guide. Any frustrating moments for you?
Well, you know what? I don't know if you say frustrating, but sometimes you're on a bit of a time restraint. You got to get, you come in, you get off the water, you got to get yourself cleaned up, you got to get your boat cleaned up, and you got to get your boat ready for the next day. And one of the big things that's been a real big advantage for me is if I'm salmon fishing one day and I'm muskie fishing the next day. First of all, you've been out in the water all day long. You want to get home. You want to get something to eat, get to bed, get some good sleep. But you got to tear your boat apart. I might have to take my downriggers off. I might have to take off my rod holders, my rod trees. And one real big advantage thing that I've done, which has been a great advantage to me, is I put a Bird's Custom tackle system on my boat. So I have 4 pieces of track on there. So it's quite simple to actually take stuff off and put, if I'm taking all my salmon stuff off, and if I'm going to be trolling for muskie the next day, I can put my muskie rod holders, slide them right back into the track, and you're ready to go. And if I don't need rod holders on, I just don't put anything in the track.
Perfect. So the track system is definitely a benefit for a multi-species guide such as yourself.
You know, I think it's great for anybody, not just a guide or just not even necessarily somebody that's multi-species. Even if you're just if you're strictly a salmon fisherman or a Great Lakes walleye fisherman, where you're running downriggers and you're running a lot of rod holders on your boat.
Yeah.
If you want to take them off, when you put your boat away, when you put it in the storage, when you're putting your tarp on or your cover, then it's a set screw. Take a set screw out, loosen off a couple of screws, and they pop right out.
Awesome. Any embarrassing moments you want to share with the audience as being a guide?
Well, I had this guy named Ben McWhinney out in the boat one day.
Easy.
No, I can't think of any. Nothing really stands out that I can think of.
No fumbles, no.
Well,
because you're that good,
I would say
right?
This is an embarrassing thing. I was doing one more muskie fishing. I'm casting as well.
Yeah.
Of course, and I don't want to hook a fish, but it does help bring fish to the boat.
Yeah.
So if I do hook a fish, I'll give it off to one of my clients, of course. And but I had a fellow out in the boat, and I didn't have any left-handed reels with me, and he's never used a bait caster before, so he was getting quite a few backlashes. And as would happen, he gets a backlash. So every time he got a backlash, instead of letting him play with it, I'd give him the rod I was using, and I'd take his backlash out. And so we're going along, and I can see he's got a backlash. So I said, "Here, give me that." And I grab his rod, and I give him mine. He casts out, and before I got the backlash off, the next cast he had a fish on, about a 40-inch muskie. So that wasn't an embarrassing story, but it was.
It happens.
It happens, yeah. Even what? Backlashes don't only happen to the clients either.
No, that's true. That's true. It happens to me. Never mind. We'll move on. So,
yeah.
What's one of the most gratifying moments as being a guide for you?
It's either when somebody gets their first muskie, or somebody catches their biggest fish, whether it's a salmon or a muskie or whatever. Especially if it's a younger angler.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can put a young angler on a muskie or a big salmon, it's awesome to see their reaction.
Yeah.
I had a fella and his son out a couple years ago, and I think the boy was 14 at the time, and I'd hooked a couple fish. I'd give him the rod to fight the fish, and we had one on about 44 inches that he lost right close to the boat, one that I had hooked. But you know what? I didn't care that he lost the fish. It was just the expression on his face was awesome. And then later on in the day, I didn't see the fish himself, but I looked back at the boat, or to the back of the boat where he was casting at the time, and he just kind of stops dead in his tracks, and he pulls his bait out of the water, and he's staring down into the water. And I was like, well, what's the matter? I knew exactly what happened. I knew he had to follow. And
Yeah.
he takes his hand, and he's thumping it on his chest, like his heart's about to pound out of his chest. So even though he didn't hook that fish, the kid had a heck of a thrill just seeing it come up behind his bait.
Yeah. Well, I noticed you had commented on my boy's picture there. I took him to the pond last night, and I consider myself his guide when we go fishing. And I casted his line in for him, and I figured, Dad being, semi-pro and all, would get the first fish on him. But no, he tagged the first fish, and the second fish, and the third fish, and he just hand over fist laid a whooping on me. And I was just beside myself with absolute pride that my tutelage and guidance was able to get him those little fish. So definitely being a guide is like Mark said, it's not about the fishing. It's about the client or the customer or the fellow angler that you're helping instruct or taking out for the first time, and reassuring them that just stick with the method that you've introduced them to, and it does pay off.
Absolutely. One of the biggest things about a guide is, yes, you do have to put people on fish, no matter what you're fishing for, but you need to And everybody's at a different level out there.
Yeah.
And you need to educate people, because most people, not everybody, but most people that hire a guide are either just getting into fishing, or they feel they, or they're not really experienced, and they're looking, or maybe they just don't fish for that species a lot. And it's very important as a guide to educate people about the equipment, about where you're fishing, why you're fishing those areas, what you're using, why you use such certain baits.
I think another important aspect of a fishing guide is to hire a guide. If you go to like places like the French River or Georgian Bay and you've never fished those waters, you could get out in a rental boat and end up lost, because the guides, that's what they're there for. They know the body of water, and to not take the opportunity to have a guide in that aspect could prove fatal.
Well, especially in places like those two bodies of water you just mentioned, with there's so many shoals and rocks sticking out of the water, or just submerged under the water. If you get off the beaten path in an area that you don't know, it can be, as you can say, it can be fatal.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, folks, that's all the time we have. My special guest, Brent Bochek from Fish NV, Multi-Species Guide Service, and you can find him on Facebook. And Mark had mentioned guides are guides, not gods. So we can put you on the fish. It's up to you to put them on the hook.
I like that.
Yeah.
To land them when you get them on.
That's right. That's right. Well, folks, don't forget, Brent and I have a contest going on our Facebook pages. We got a race to 1,000 fans. So once both Brent and I on our Facebook pages have reached 1,000 fans, one of you lucky individuals is going to win a full day salmon fishing and a taping of Ben McQuinney Outdoors with Fish MV Guide Service. So don't forget to like our pages. And Brent, I just got to thank you for coming on board Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to catching some fish with you shortly.
Looking forward to getting out in the water, Ben, and as always, it's been a pleasure myself.
All right, let's go pay some bills with some mentions of other sponsors. True Canadian Outdoors presents Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio. Has been brought to you in part by True Canadian Outdoors, your one-stop in outdoor adventure. Angler's Choice, the Angler's Choice in handmade soft plastics. Handlebars, Musky Lures. Zing the Bling. Frantic Big Game Baits. Anglers know the game. Fish fear the name. And Fish NV Multi-Species Guide Service. Catch it. This is Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio. Is this JT?
Yes, it is.
How you doing, JT? It's Ben McQuinney from True Canadian Outdoors presents Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio. How you doing?
Oh, wonderful, sir. How are you?
Awesome. This week's topic is on guiding, and I know as a bait manufacturer, I'm sure guides come into play for you.
Yeah, they're pretty much my number one source for prototyping and explaining to me how my baits should work and how they are working.
Excellent. And for guiding, have you ever used the services of a guide before, or guided anyone?
I've guided a few people out on the Grand River, but nothing for muskie. But as far as using a guide, I have been out with Keith Davison a few times fishing.
Yes.
And I've also been out with a pro guide up on Eagle Lake, Jeffrey David Morrow, as well.
Excellent. And how would you what would you tell our listeners about utilizing guides? Is it a good thing, bad thing, an indifferent thing?
Are you talking about fishing standpoint, or are you talking about bait standpoint?
Well, either or.
Well, as a fisherman, I mean, you can't go wrong with a guide using someone that absolutely knows the lake like the back of their hand, where to go, hot spots, things like that. A lot of guys will hook you up with rods and gear, as they already have it available, because they know what's used on that lake. So as opposed to just going out and fishing and wandering around in a boat for hours, guide is definitely the way to go. They're worth the money, and they'll probably hook you up on fish. Now, as a bait manufacturer and utilizing guides, first of all, it's hard to come by a guide that is a good guide that will be willing to use your prototype product just because they already have their desired baits and they know what works. But if you do happen to get lucky and come across a guide or two that will use your baits for prototyping, then that's definitely the way you want to go. Any designs you have, give them to the guides. They'll fish them. They'll tell you what you need to do in order to tweak them to make them work better, or maybe you got lucky and it works right the first hop. But that's usually not the way it goes with prototypes. So I've been fortunate enough to work with Keith Davison a lot, and he has definitely prototyped probably 90% of my designs and given me incredible feedback, which has made Frantic Baits one of the top manufacturers of big game musky baits around.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I remember talking with Gord Pizer at the Muskie Odyssey, which was a fantastic show put on by Muskies Canada, Inc., about the top water baits that you have. Do you have any prototypes going out this year?
I do have. I have two prototypes in the works right now. One is a glide bait, and the other one is a top water bait, which is actually just a different version of the 6-inch Papa Dogs that I make right now. And Keith Davison will be fishing both of those to let me know how they work. But as for Mr. Pizer, I met him for the first time at the Muskie Odyssey, and just an amazing fellow, complete gentleman. Was very, very generous in promoting my product in his seminar, and actually had some extremely kind words to say regarding my baits on the Facebook. Mm-hmm. As you know, we are on Facebook at Frantic Baits, and I don't know, his words were very kind, calling me, one of the top manufacturers in the world of topwater musky baits. So it was very flattering, and hopefully we can just continue to do good business in the future.
Absolutely. I know I've had dealings with Keith, and he definitely exudes the passion that you put forth in your baits when he's fishing them. I've seen him work a bait until he's had a follow and a hookup. It's just incredible. And I asked him, well, what are you doing? He goes, I'm fishing a prototype bait. Oh. So one of the, as far as I'm concerned, top guides for Ben McQuinney Outdoors, there hasn't been a time that I've gone out with him, with the crew, and not caught fish. So...
Yeah, well, Keith is, once again, stands very unique atop the guide charts for me, as he, not only is he the type of guide that is not afraid to use a wide variety of baits, but he's also the type of guide that if he catches a fish on one of my baits, he'll say it was on one of my baits. If he catches a fish on another brand of baits, he'll say it was caught on that brand of bait.
Yeah.
So he's not the type of guide that's going to, he's not there to appease myself or any other manufacturer by saying, oh, hey, I caught this 55-inch muskie on a blah, blah, blah bait, when in factuality it was another type of bait.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of guides out there that are notorious for doing that sort of thing. So Keith is a very trustworthy guy, and, he's second to none. He catches some insane amount of muskie, like 200 muskie a season, which is, unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So doing it with Frantics is even better.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, we've covered a bit of the use of guides as a manufacturing standpoint, and also for an angler to utilize guides. Have you ever had a bad experience with a guide?
Ooh.
Or had a bad experience being a guide?
I did have myself when I was guiding someone on the Speed River last year. My bad experience. I kept telling the individual to make sure you follow me, stay as close to me as possible, because I do know the structure. And this individual decided to wander off about 20 yards too far. Found an outcropping of rocks that I knew was there, but he didn't.
Oh.
Proceeded to hit his shin pretty hard, fell into the water, and all of his tackle that he was carrying
oh, goodness.
watched it float down the stream. So we were chasing tackle for the next 2 hours.
Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah, as far as me using a guide, I've never had a bad experience using a guide. But like I said, I've been on boats with a couple of guides who I won't mention that have caught fish on certain baits, and then when I see the report, they've claimed they caught it on a different bait, and to me that's pretty much the lowest that you can go as a guide, and it makes a lot of people angry. So
basically what you're saying is as a guide or anybody wanting to get into guiding, one of the crucial personality traits is to be a trustworthy person.
Well, trustworthy and, be totally honest.
Yeah.
We're all in this business together, and we should all realize that we're fishing muskie. We're all brothers.
Yeah.
And we should all be here for each other and, give credit where credit is due.
Absolutely.
And that's not just from guides, but that's for anybody, if you caught a fish on the bait, say it was on that bait. Don't say it was on someone else's.
Absolutely.
And, that's how you get credibility, and that's how you get repeat business, and that's what it's all about.
Yep. Well, folks, you've been listening to True Canadian Outdoors presents Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio. My special guest, Jonathan Taylor from Frantic Big Game Baits. You can like them on Facebook. And I just want to thank Jonathan for his time and for his input in this week's topic of guiding. Join me next week as we hit the airwaves again. It'll be posted on my True Canadian Outdoors presents Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio Facebook page of what the topic's going to be. If you'd like to hear a topic or have a topic in mind, don't hesitate to email us at benmcquinney@yahoo.com. JT, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for being also a contributor to Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio.
Well, my pleasure, Ben. Good luck with your show, and I know you'll do fine, buddy. Just keep working hard and keep your head down.
True Canadian Outdoors presents Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio. Has been brought to you in part by True Canadian Outdoors, your one-stop in outdoor adventure. Angler's Choice, the Angler's Choice in handmade soft plastics. Handlebars Musky Lures. Zing the Bling. Frantic Big Game Baits. Anglers know the game. Fish fear the name. And Fish NV Multi-Species Guide Service. Catch it. This is Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio.